All right, listeners, welcome back to the show. I'm glad to have you. Now, I'm sorry about the interruptions and tangents that we experienced last episode. I know it's not what you come to me for, but don't worry about it, because we're going to get right back into the swing of things. That's right, today we're talking about font theory. Now, let's open with serif versus sans serif fonts. This is one of the big sticking points for a lot of people who don't know how to use Google. Now, a serif is like the little tail or nib or tick at the end of what's generally considered a more formal font. Now, the traditional classic serif font would have to be Times New Roman, which is one of my personal favorites. I'm more a serif guy myself. Now, they are, as I said before, generally considered to be a more formal font. They're often found on printed works instead of digital works due to old screen resolution problems. And they're generally slightly easier to read. The alternative to a serif font, of course, is a sans serif font. Now, sans comes from French and means without or no. So the sans serif font naturally means a font without serifs. They have a very clean, sort of modern feel. They generally don't have any of the embellishment you would find in a more traditional serifed font. Now, these are usually found in in digital works, because old screens had an easier time resolving the straight ends without kind of getting muddy and difficult to actually interpret. The classic example of a serif font would have to be the perpetually overrated Helvetica. So, I know what you're asking, but Liam, which is inherently better than the other in every... Hello?
Hey Liam, we should do a podcast on Dose, the card game you remember for last time. We should do an episode on it right now.
But Dose was terrible.
I know, that's why we need to talk about it.
Fine. Cue intro. Alright, this is Liam Nolan, once again having my show hijacked. And my, guest, Matthew Gorgonzola? Something like that?
Hello.
So, I had a fantastic episode planned about fonts, but I guess we're gonna do Dose now, the card game?
Yeah, you know what's better than fonts? A children's card game. Imagine Dose. Did you have too much fun with Uno? Now there's Dose, without any of the fun things like skips, or returns, or extra draw cards that you can just pile on.
Okay, so I wish he was joking, but we talked last episode about Dose, the new card game by Milton Bradley. And we bought 2 copies, because it's called Dose. How do you only buy... You have to. We had to play with 2 decks. And then we went home, and we played the most confusing and disappointing sequel of all time.
Yeah, so let me tell you how it kind of played out. So we played round 1, and then Liam won. And then we played round 2, figured out that some of the rules that we thought were there weren't, and then there were some different rules, and we played that, and Liam won again. But then we read the rules again, and then apparently there's more than 2 decks. There's, like, you can just keep on putting things in the center pile, and then you discard them all at the end of the round, and then you do it again. So we played, like, 3 or 4 different rounds, and we still don't know how to play the game.
Well, I know how to play the game. I won all of them.
Well, you know how to play some things that we thought were Dose.
Okay, fair. So after we gave up, I was reading through the rules again because it had talked about a discard pile. When do you discard things in Uno, you ask? You don't. It turns out you discard things in Dose, though. It just doesn't really say that very much.
Yeah, because you have to reset the round at the end of the round. So is it always the same 2 cards, like when you set from the beginning?
No, you deal new 2 cards. So you deal 2 cards off the top, and then you play Crazy Eights on 2 decks simultaneously. But then, once everyone's had a turn, you throw all that away and deal 2 brand new cards.
But why?
Because 2.
Did you, speaking of card games, did you ever get into Magic the Gathering?
I have played it a few times. I actually have a deck of Magic the Gathering cards, like just off screen, because I found it in a box of old junk that I was going through.
Yes, just off screen on a podcast.
Just off mic. Yeah,
over there.
On. I'll bring him on, Mike. That was our new guest deck of Magic cards. He's very opinionated.
Yeah, that's our guest spot for today, because I didn't think of how we were going to have a guest spot for this episode, because they kind of need recording equipment, and I forgot about that.
If you're watching a later episode and you think to yourself, God, I hate this guest, their mic is terrible. You do, and it is. But no, I've never really gotten into I've played like 3 rounds, because I think Ian made me one time. Oh, Ian,
Right.
if you don't know, is a guy we both know whose parents used to own a game store. He was nice. I liked Ian.
Yeah, and then he moved to Washington, and it always felt like a game that I feel like I should get into, but then all the rules seem arbitrary and not as fun as Yu-Gi-Oh!
I loved Yu-Gi-Oh! When I was a kid. We talked about this, actually. We've already discussed Yu-Gi-Oh!
Last episode?
Yeah, remember? Because you apparently played by the actual rules.
Oh no, you were talking about Uno then.
Oh, were we? Okay. Well, when I was a kid, Yu-Gi-Oh! Was a huge deal. Like, kids would have recess Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournaments. What mattered was what you claimed you saw in the show one time.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Which was fantastic, because the show did not follow the rules.
Yeah, I remember particularly, there was one episode where they had Sword of 1,000 Lights or something, some card like that, and it just kind of destroyed the other guy. Like, haha, I've destroyed all the cards on your side of the field, and the card totally doesn't do that at all. It lets you see the cards, and apparently that got rid of them.
Apparently Magic Deck says that's bullshit.
Did you ever notice how, I think it was because of Magic the Gathering, Magic cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Were renamed to spell cards, and they kind of just never talked about it?
I thought Magic the Gathering came out, like, decades before Yu-Gi-Oh! Did.
Oh, it completely did.
Oh, okay.
But
that makes sense then.
Yu-Gi-Oh!, the spell cards were Magic cards. And then later on, they were just spell cards, and they never, they retconned the idea.
Of course they did.
I play my spell card! Monster Reborn! No, you can't do that. Sorry.
Can you imagine a crossover episode where someone tried to use Magic the Gathering cards in a Yu-Gi-Oh! Battle?
Oh god, the Master Tournament, where it's just every children's card game and you could use any cards out of them.
Yeah. Hey, what's your attack power? 4? Oh boy.
Well, mine's 10,000.
Yeah. How many life points do you have? 20? 4,000. Good luck, buddy.
It's like, haha, I play this card, which allows me to see your hand. Let's see, what do I got here? An 8 from Uno, Monster Reborn, Jace the Mind Sculptor, a Road from Settlers of Catan.
Great, and the only rules are the ones you make up and explain on the fly.
I would love to play that game.
I play Sheep, which gives me the ability to never be hit by your attacks, because I have all of the scapegoats.
Longest Road, which now you have to declare your attacks 2 turns in advance, because it takes that long to get there.
That would be good. In all seriousness, though, Dose does not contain skip-a-turns or pick-up 2s, which are the best cards in the game.
It's like, yeah, point of Uno, where you have a wild draw 4, and then the next guy plays a wild draw 4, and then it carries over to the next guy. Can't even do that, because they replace wilds with just the number 2, which...
Yeah, 2s are wild.
I don't get why. Like, I get it's Dose, but I feel like 2s should have other things than just wild.
Like, maybe if you play a 2, the other person has to pick up 2.
Yeah, like in Uno.
But that was not a thing.
Also, the rules weren't super clear on when you're supposed to say Dose.
They were incredibly clear. You just didn't like it.
It makes it seem like as soon as you get 2 cards, either by discarding one or drawing one, you have to say Dose.
Yes! That's exactly the rule.
That seems terrible.
That's a common thing in this kind. All right, you know what? Forget about it. Let's move on. I think we're getting too much exciting card game action in this episode.
I mean, they could have at least implemented a 2-second rule.
Why?
Because it's a 2-second rule.
Oh. Oh.
See, they're not even thinking of all the possibilities.
Well, we'll have to wait for Trace to come out.
Yeah, that'd be pretty great.
Hopefully. I mean, there's no way to know for real. Oh, so let's talk about this. It's something we started to discuss at the start of the episode. We are considering implementing a perpetual podcasting point program to determine who is the superior podcaster.
Or the P4, or the PlayStation 4 for sure.
So, what do you think about the PlayStation 4? And which one of us is the Paramount podcasting personality?
God, you're good at that. I think we're both Paramount podcasting people.
In what sense?
That can't be true.
The sense that you just stole 2 words from my brilliant alliteration?
Maybe I'm not the best alliterator in the room. That sounds like a great superhero. The Alliterator.
That would be pretty good, actually.
What's the other thing with alliteration? Consonants?
Assonance.
So you have the Alliterator versus the asinine assonance.
Seriously though, why? You realize you'd lose, right?
I feel like I would have more motivation if I had points behind me, like with many things, like a GPA, and we all know who won that battle.
Okay, so what do we think? Ouch! Wow! Wow! What do we think should be worth podcast points?
Well, obviously, okay, what would be negative points and what would be positive points?
Negative points would be suggesting we reschedule, suggesting we go to bi-weekly, not remembering to bring a guest on, not doing the editing for the podcast.
Okay, rule 1, we can't go below 0.
I think we absolutely can go below 0.
I feel like you should be able to build points and then lose them, but you can't go below what you started with.
Why?
Gotta give me some chance, Liam. Can't go less than 2 points.
Can't go below 2 points. Matt, I think we may need to hire a team of mathematicians to work out what your score could be in the real number line.
Oh, yeah. That gives you 2 plus I points minus pi.
Okay, so in all seriousness though, how would we score? Wait, do we still have the HWH Twitter account?
I haven't made a Twitter account.
No, didn't we?
I don't think so, unless we did that last time.
Yeah, but from the zeros.
I don't think I did. I know we have a Facebook page.
Well, it seems as though lately the trick to being popular on Twitter is just being really mean to people. And I gotta tell you, Matt, I'm an excellent mean-to-people person.
Okay, I'll let you handle the Twitter then.
So, you're gonna have to teach me how to use Twitter, but then I figure, we're good.
You already have a Twitter account.
Do I?
Yeah, we went back and forth a couple of times on Twitter.
That's right. Yeah. I think it would work out better if it was under the podcast name, though.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But then we would be talking... No. Yeah, that would just be for letting people know when an episode's about to go up, or if it just went up, and the scoreboard, I guess.
Yeah, well, here's what I'm thinking. Once we've been really, really mean to a bunch of people with a lot of followers, which, again, if I understand correctly, is what Twitter is for.
But then also you have to
only in ways that aren't very clever?
Well, the thing is, if you're too mean, your group, and you don't have grounds to do so, you end up in a JonTron scenario.
What did he say? What was the thing that he did? All I know is he's a Nazi.
I don't remember. Well, I actually don't think I ever looked into it. But that's not the some kind of thing you put on Twitter.
Maybe we'll need to look into this some more. Because we have some bad history with... Oh my god, actually, did I tell you about the time my mother got banned from Twitter for tweeting at Anthony Bourdain?
Oh no, what?
Okay, this happened. So, he did whatever his terrible show is on Newfoundland, which is where we're from.
Right.
And she thought she was replying on Facebook to a friend of hers who had posted a picture of him in one of the bays. Bourdain, I think the exact quote was, "So, is he as shitty in person as he seems? Because I can't figure that guy out."
Oh my god.
And then she was banned from Twitter.
Forever or just from
Forever.
his profile?
She has a new account now.
That's beautiful. I mean, I'm sorry for her loss, but that's beautiful.
Yeah, I don't care for Anthony Bourdain. But no, we have some bad histories with Electra. Do you remember that time we were trying to back and forth a revised thing for the podcast theme, and you kept saying, "Liam, this is it doesn't even sound like music," and I kept saying, "What are you talking about? It's not that bad, man."
Oh yeah, that was the audio file that had been touched by Satan.
What even happened to that? Did we ever figure it out?
I think so. So here's the whole story. We were making the ringtone sound that you hear at the beginning of the episode. I made it for Liam because I thought it'd be a nice gift to celebrate his podcast that I'm currently interrupting for the second time in a row.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. Good job.
Yeah, no problem. Every single time. I know when you're doing these. I bugged your room.
Did you? Is that how you keep knowing about stuff?
Maybe. You can figure it out. It's my my little puzzle from me to you.
Finish your story while I look for blinking lights.
Oh, you gotta get the IR glasses. Night vision will help. Anyway, so he sends to me a file that he thinks would be good for his ringtone. And then I check it, I'm just like, what is this? Because all I heard, and I think we could probably just insert samples of this later on, but what I heard was... And now, the weirdest thing about this is that on anything that I viewed it on my phone, whether it was the built-in audio player or Google Play or from Facebook, it showed 3 seconds long. But the audio file played for about 5 to 6 seconds, which already was just like, what is happening? And depending on which viewer that I used, or listener, I guess, the ending would be slightly different. You'd either just be just static, or you would hear like some demonic thing in the background. I'm just like, oh, okay, Liam somehow got an audio file touched by Satan, which wouldn't be the first time that one of our audio recordings just got randomly corrupted for who knows what reason.
Oh yeah, like that time from the Zeros when we were trying to record a podcast, and then I put it into Audacity, which is the program we're currently using because I'm not about to pay money for this, and everything just broke.
Yeah, it broke so hard that Liam had sent me a raw audio file, and this was just like an MP3 file or WAV or something. It broke so hard on his system that it broke on mine, and I could no longer listen to it, and it wasn't in a Dropbox folder. Or what?
No, it was just a WAV file. Time when we had a podcast, and the next day when I literally opened the screen on my laptop to start editing, all of our voices started doing one of these, but in really inconsistent ways, and I had to go through and do like 30 different editing on every minute whenever we were trying to talk about. It was the worst. It literally took me like 9 hours to amplify and de-amplify in all the right places so it sounded like a podcast again.
And it kind of still didn't work.
No, we have really, really, really bad luck with electronics.
Recording last episode, for whatever reason, all of the audio levels, the background noise, everything was just perfect.
It was really good, yeah. I mean, even by my standards, it was acceptable.
Because Liam usually says, like, oh, it takes like 8 to 9 hours to do maybe an hour-long episode.
It usually took me about 5 for a
okay.
for one that didn't totally destroy itself. Ballpark
and then I'm
5
watching,
hours.
like, we decided to keep the Skype call going, and I'm watching him edit it, and it's going faster than it takes for us to listen to it. I'm like, Liam, have you been lying to me all this time? I'm so hurt.
God, I wish I'd been lying all this time.
Oh, but anyway, we had that audio file that was touched by Satan.
Right,
and then
right.
I, in a Facebook message, sent it back to him. And he's just like, what are you talking about? This sounds just like what I sent you. I'm like, are you sure you want the ringtone to sound like that? Because I I don't think that's okay.
Yeah, and this wasn't actually what we wound up settling on. We wound up using the same chord structure, but a different melody. I had been playing around with some stuff in MuseScore, which is a program I use because I learned to read sheet music, the way that I can put things down. So I sent it to him. He sent it back. It still sounded like kind of a simple melody with fairly little bass line and some chord changes. And he said, Liam, are you positive you want it to... Am I hearing this wrong? Like, where's the anything? And I thought he was just being a dick.
So then I take my phone. I get a backup phone that I had that's like way cheaper, so I don't use it anymore. I took a video of my phone playing the audio file on the other phone. I send that to him, and he's just like, what did you do? What is this? Because it just sounds like...
It was bad. Oh, God, did I ever tell you, before I forget, I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast, but what I do for a living is I babysit children. And over Christmas, they had like a camp, so I had to be in for 8 hours, and it's the worst. It's terrible, because do you remember being a kid when your mom would make you go and sit in your school cafeteria and just be there all day? And a kindergartner came up to me and was like, Mr. Liam, I just finished watching, it was a really good movie about stuff. And I said, oh, what was it about? Oh, it was Alien Covenant. And I didn't put it together at first. Like, I still thought it was a children's film. No, this kid had straight up watched the latest Alien movie on her tablet at school.
Oh,
thought it was hilarious.
That's slightly disturbing.
Yeah, so I didn't mention that to my boss.
Although, I have to say, have you seen the... Okay, so first of all, there's another Wreck-It Ralph movie coming out. Did you see the first one?
Yeah, Cameron made me watch it with him. He described it as the greatest animated film of all time.
I would disagree, but okay.
Oh, I would very much disagree, yes.
So, first of all, the sequel's called Ralph Breaks the Internet. Now, do you hear a problem with that? Ralph breaks the internet. Can you think of a more appropriate word that would tie into something that was in the last movie instead of breaks?
Ralph Sarah Silverman's the internet.
Oh, Jesus. If you could figure it out, audience, as the episode of Dora the Explorer this is, the correct word would be Rex. Not Sarah Silverman, you deserve 0 points.
I'm sorry, have you ever heard her voice? If anything, mine is harsher.
Oh, it's definitely harsher. You get 5 points. Not podcast points, but just points. Oh, do we score jokes as podcast points? I think we should score jokes as points.
You know what? We should.
And then you're just going to give me 0 points ever.
And we'll go ahead and just let the audience keep track for us.
Oh, yeah, we have the audience count. No, that's a terrible idea.
Yeah. Well, what do you mean? Everyone loves being asked to do work for their favorite podcast. By the way, if anyone wants to edit this for us, I won't pay you, but I'll let you do it.
Are you sure it's just not going to end up an episode of the Sarah Silverman show? Just straight up, they just don't do anything with the audio, and then they rip the audio from a Sarah Silverman show episode?
I take it back.
Yeah, I'll leave the editing to you, and maybe I could count the points.
All right, we'll let you count the points.
I'll try to be fair.
Speaking of, how did we get here?
Oh, yeah, how did we get here? We were talking about Amazon accounts, I think.
Oh, right, because of your broken computer.
And the whole room was broken.
Because of your broken life.
No, I don't think we talked on that one.
Now we'll get to it. Oh, and then the kid watching Alien.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because of Christmas? What about Christmas?
Talk about Christmas. We talked about card games. Yu-Gi-Oh! We talked about that.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Magic. Dose. We opened with Dose.
And you know what's crazy about Dose? The font on the... Fonts! You were talking about that.
Oh, right. We forgot about suspension of disbelief, but that's fine. We'll skip it this episode. Okay, so going into which font is inherently superior to all other fonts. Hear me out. I know that there's a joke about Comic Sans actually being terrible, but it's not. It is amazing, and you should use it in every project that you do. All right, and welcome back, everyone, to your favorite segment, Suspension of Disbelief, now that we have figured out where we're supposed to put it. Anyway, moving on, today we're going to discuss confusions between the map and the territory. So what do we mean by that? Matt, if I told you I had a map, what would you think I meant?
That you have, say, a road map or something that you drew up of an area that would help you traverse it.
All right. Yes. But that's not what we're talking about here. So in this example, we're using them to mean two specific things. The territory, in this case, is all of truth and reality. The territory is everything outside of yourself. The things that you can look at and interact with that aren't you and your perceptions of them. The map is the thing that you're using to interpret and understand the territory. So the map in this case is your understanding of all those things outside of you that you're attempting to make sense of. So let's give an example. Let's say you were on a road trip. So Matt, you and me were going to drive all the way up to Canada, and we have a map that's not necessarily all the way complete.
Okay.
When do we want to change the map? Because we can write on the map, we can change the map all we want. That's purely in our own interpretation of the road, which we cannot change. So when would we want to change the map?
I would say we would change the map whenever we get to a point where what we're looking at, like the road, the highway, obviously disagrees with what's on the map already.
You don't think it would be easier to just reinterpret how you're thinking about, you don't actually have to change it. You can just say, well, I'm interpreting the highway wrong.
Well, I suppose you could do that, but that's less useful. And I think the goal should be to have the map as accurate as possible.
Right. So you want to change your mind early, and you want to change your mind as often as you can. So far as you have something to update on. There is a change in the road. When the map's accurate, you don't want to change it just for the sake of changing it.
Right. It would always be good to do some forethought, a little bit of research to make sure that you're not changing the map as you get there, because that's not even that useful. The whole point of to have a map is to let you know what's coming up ahead.
Okay, now let's ask a slightly more fundamental question, which is, how do you know when you actually need to change your map?
When you get some evidence that would say the map might be wrong.
I don't think that's the most useful way to do it, and I think most of the rational literature would agree with me. I would argue that you need to change your map whenever something happens that you couldn't have predicted using your map.
Okay, so your map still may be correct with some parts of it, but maybe you left out a road, and so you need to update that.
Right, if you couldn't have predicted that there was going to be a left-hand turn using your map, then you need to update your map. And this applies to a much broader set of circumstances than strictly just having a map on the road. This is a metaphor for understanding and having a good map of reality in general. Now, there's a really good thing that you can use to kind of get this set in your head, and it's called the Litany of Tarski. Are you familiar with it?
Yes.
How does it go?
It's been a while since I've heard it, but it's something like, so you have a box and a diamond, or like a diamond and a box, and the way you want to think about it is, if there is a diamond in the box, you want to believe that there is a diamond in the box, because obviously that's preferable. But what people sometimes don't really think about or aren't used to thinking, if there's not a diamond in the box, you want to believe that there is not a diamond in the box. If I remember that correctly. Right.
So there's one really important last line there, and it's also worth pointing out that that can be applied to any statement about anything. So the classic example is, because I've pulled it up for the sake of quoting, if the box contains a diamond, I desire to believe that the box contains a diamond. If the box does not contain a diamond, I desire to believe that the box does not contain a diamond. So you were on track.
Right.
And that's important and good to know. But the critical point is, let me not become attached to beliefs I may not want. You need to be really careful about becoming so attached to your beliefs and so attached to the idea of having been right about other things that when you fail to have predicted something, you're too afraid to admit you were wrong and update on the fact that you didn't know that there wouldn't be a diamond in the box. You want to change your mind as soon as you can.
Right. So I would say, to take that to the map and territory example, suppose I had my map and I look at it, I'm like, wow, these lines or these roads spell out the word hello. And it's something that I find pleasing, so I want it to be that way. That's kind of iffy, because if I get there and something's wrong, I'm going to be more hesitant to update on that. So I should never have a belief about my beliefs like that.
As soon as you realize that your map doesn't match the territory wins.
Right.
Believe me, I've tried. No matter how hard you fight with reality, it seems to always win the argument. So the trick is to lose that argument as soon as you can, and as early as you can, and as fast as you can.
Right. I've heard that a lot of times in my engineering school. The goal is to fail as fast as you can.
Get ahead to the part where you're right.
Right.
And I think that's a good place to end our rationality corner from the day. That's an easy one to get your head around. It has a nice quotation you can kind of think about and apply to your day-to-day comings and goings. And with that, until next week, remember to never suspend your disbelief. How Did We Get Here is a production of Dusty Closet Radio. To contact the show, send an email to hwhpodcast@gmail.com. Remember to subscribe for more Dusty content.